Good morning. This is the AFL Hour with Geoff and Liam here on 3SSR. It's now semi-finals time in the AFL and we're up to a big week of football. But first, we want to talk about the heroes of the the heroes of the qualifying and elimination finals, the Doggies, Jeremy Cameron and Eddie Betts. And we'll also look at the not so much of the heroes, the West Coast Eagles, North Melbourne and Isaac Smith, as well as the MVP awards and the Essendon players are back at training, as well on why the Giants can win the premiership this year, plus many more here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. It is currently 10 degrees here in Melbourne. Probably no rain to speak of, so it'll be a good game at the MCG later on today. So let's go through the first round of the finals. Start off last Thursday with the Doggies getting over the West Coast Eagles by 47 points in Perth. Doggies 14-15-99 to West Coast 7-10-52. We'll go down the Friday night and a goal after the siren miss by Isaac Smith helped the Cats to a 2-point victory over the Hawks. 12-13-85 to 12-11-83. The Cats now advance to the prelim finals next week. And on Saturday, another qualifying final with the Greater Western Sydney Giants making the best ever debut in the finals, defeating Sydney by 36 points. 12-19-91 to 7-13-55. And the last game, there was really no point of North Melbourne showing up in the finals this year, going down to Adelaide by 62 points, 12-15, 141 to North Melbourne, 12-7-79.
Well, let's talk about the Adelaide North Melbourne game, because I told you a couple of weeks ago, Liam, that I didn't really think that North Melbourne should have actually been in the finals. They were so out of it walking into that final series. There were multiple reasons.
They were ever since they lost against Sydney, they were pretty much out the race.
What was it? Remind me of the ladder. What was the ladder like? So how many games were they behind the 7th place team? They were like 49 or something, right? Till Adelaide's 50. Probably not Adelaide. West Coast, I think.
Doggies.
Doggies 56. And I mean, like, just looking at the ladder alone, you just know they did not deserve to go into that.
Yeah, the
final
Doggies
series.
were on 60 points, then North Melbourne was on 48.
48. They did not deserve to be in that final series. Full stop.
Well, ever since they lost they've only won 3 games since their first loss to Sydney. They defeated Richmond, then they defeated Collingwood and St Kilda.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what possibly went wrong. I've never seen a team go from 1 to 8th, or in my opinion, 1 to 9th, really, that quickly in the season.
I think Essendon would have done a better showing in the finals.
They probably would have.
More heart. On the bright side, Jack Daw played good with the 4 goals he kicked.
Yeah, Jack Daw is really starting to fight for his position. You can actually see it. I mean, because for the last couple of years, North Melbourne's been known as a team with the tools. You got Ben Brown, Drew Petrie, Jared Waite, and Todd Goldstein. With Drew Petrie leaving, he wants to have that forward line position. He wants to play senior footy. And you know what? I've seen him play a couple of games this year, and I do think he's ready for next season. He's just got to give a good pre-season.
And this game marks the final game for North Melbourne for Boomer, Drew Petrie, Nick D'Alessandro, and Michael Frito. It's been rumoured that West Coast are looking at Drew Petrie just on a 1-year deal because of their 2 big ruckmen might be missing the entire next year. Nick D'Alessandro is rumoured to go to Collingwood, but so is Daniel's actually rumoured to go to Collingwood. And Brent Harvey, the last rumour I heard was that GWS might look at him for like a 2-year deal.
Well, I don't think that GWS really need Boomer. I think they're in that really prime position of they have that good mix of senior and young players, so I don't really think they should be giving anything up for him.
And Michael Frito did announce he was retiring. But what a game by Eddie Betts, the 6 goals he kicked.
Pardon me?
The 6 goals by Eddie Betts.
Yeah, well, Eddie Betts is Eddie Betts. Eddie Betts is becoming that heart and soul of Adelaide at the moment.
Don't Carlton love watching Eddie Betts play?
Well, he was a good player for them. Like it's not like he was terrible at Carlton, then he went to Adelaide, then he was good. Like, he did play a handful of games, a handful of good games.
But look, Josh Kennedy won the Coleman Medal, former Carlton player. Eddie Betts, he's destroying it, former Carlton player.
I don't know. I remember there was this one point in the season when Josh Kennedy and Eddie Betts were the 2 top goal kickers of the season, and everyone was like, Carlton need a goal kicker. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
Do you think that Carlton should go for Drew Petrie because they still can't find a forward?
I don't think they should go for Drew Petrie. I think they maybe
for the last 3 or 4, even like 5 years, they've just needed someone. Ever since, like, in my opinion, when Favola left the club, they've just needed someone there to hold the fort down while they look for
they really haven't
forward.
had... Like, Levi Caswell is a good forward, but he's not a superstar forward.
He's not a tall forward.
No.
They need someone big and tall who can take a good contested mark and actually kick a goal. And do you think that Drew Petrie should be looked at?
Let's go to Thursday night. For one, the Thursday night final was a huge success, TV wise and attendance wise. And what about the doggies though? Who I didn't tip them, but it seems like I'm the only one in the world who didn't tip the Bulldogs.
Oh, I didn't tip them either because they don't. They always look like the Eagles were just going to be amazing at home because look pretty much since the Eagles began, I think it was like the 80s.
87, yeah.
They always look dangerous at home, and then when you see the Bulldogs and how they basically dismantled them game plan wise, yeah, it's very shocking. But you just know that this shows that the Bulldogs are actually a very good side to play against.
What do you think? I got to say, Tom Boyd's game is probably the best 0-goal game from a key forward.
Yeah,
I've seen in a long time.
Well, I think we're going to start seeing more of those in the future because what he was doing was he was basically just running through the middle and taking amazing contested marks. And I was telling you earlier this year that I thought that's the biggest problem with the Bulldogs is they don't have enough players to take contested marks.
Now, I don't know, how is Travis Cloak going to fit into the Doggies next year with Stringer, Cramery, Boyd, and now Cloak in the forward line?
Well, it depends. You got to ask, does he want to go there?
Well, he's agreed to a 2-year deal.
Has he agreed to a 2-year deal? Well, then I'm not sure, actually. What I'm going to ask you is it just going to happen? What happened at the Magpies, being that he's dropped a handful of times and thrown to the VFL and not really performing at his best in the VFL?
And that's a team who didn't even make the 8.
That's a team that didn't even make the 8. Is he going to do that with the Bulldogs? Or I'm not sure. Well, it depends on a lot of things. We've seen some players in the past who've left the club and have just become superstars in another club, but it just begs the question.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that they could do is just start shifting players. Move Cramery back into the half-forward flanks rather than the centre-half forward line. But, Travis Cloak is just going to fight for a spot. Yeah, you're a 2010 Premiership player, but that doesn't really mean much anymore.
So is Chris Dawes.
Yeah, and where's he?
We'll go down the front. How good is the Geelong-Hawthorn rivalry?
Oh, it's the best of our generation. It's the best of our era.
What
Hawthorn and Essendon and I think Carlton and Richmond were like... Richmond and Collingwood were in the 80s. That's kind of like for us right now. They just have an amazing history.
And that... I don't know about you, but I knew Isaac Smith was going to miss that goal when he looked over and smiled.
You thought he was going to miss that goal from the get-go?
No, I thought it was like... I know, Isaac Smith. I've got him down as the next Hawthorn captain.
Yeah, he's really cool.
I still say to this day that he should have won the Norm Smith last year. But he marked the ball, goes back, smiles...
Oh, okay, yes.
And I think he rushed the kick.
Well, in that situation, you would. Like, you would just want to get it over and done with in a way, which is a bad thing to do. But, I mean, it actually... The kick did look good for a second, didn't it? It looked like it was coming back beautifully, but then it dropped short.
And then we'll go down to the... Well, we already spoke about LA. So the final game, I did not tip the Giants. I had the Giants going out in straight sets, and now they're a game away from a grand final.
God, I was barracking for the Giants. And I think if you were in a Sydney Sport, you were barracking for the Giants. But you know what won it for the Giants was their pressure. Their absolute
phenomenal.
pressure, tackling pressure. This one's going to move in that final quarter.
Well, Buddy kicked no goals. Always a positive when Buddy doesn't kick a goal. Stevie Johnson got a 1-match suspension and kicked 5 points.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but Mumford didn't get suspension.
Nah, he didn't get suspended at all.
Well, that's good. But I think we can't be just saying that Buddy had a terrible game because if you watch that game back, he was just running through the middle. He was always running through the middle, taking good marks. And it wasn't until about the final quarter that they pushed him back into the forward line, but he wasn't able to be effective there.
And Jeremy Cameron's third quarter, the 3 goals he kicked plus that rundown tackle on Gary Rowan was one of the best quarters. I remember I was watching Fox Footy yesterday, and it had the 05 Sydney versus Geelong.
Is that the
Nick Davis? Yeah, 4 goals.
Yeah.
See, because it was such a close game, that one they won by a kick. Nick Davis 4 goals, he's stuff of legends. Matthew Pavlage's 2012 final against Geelong where he kicked 6 goals, stuff of legends. Jeremy Cameron's 3-goal quarter when the game was tight, stuff of legends. It probably won't be. It'd be like the Mark Swartz save in the 2005 qualifying.
Yeah.
You know, everyone remembers John Aloisi's goal, but no one remembers Mark Swartz's save beforehand.
I remember Mark Swartz's save.
Such a good save. But that's what I think. Because it's the third quarter and it wasn't a close game.
You would overlook it.
Yeah, but I thought, when the going gets tough, the best players shine.
Yeah, and he was amazing, but I hope that he can bring it again in the preliminary final because what we've seen in the past a lot of times was you would see players play some amazing game in the final series, but you know what happens next is that they basically draw their own target on their backs. So you just know whoever's going to be playing the Giants in that preliminary final, they're going to have a close eye on. They're going to have a close eye on Jeremy Cameron.
Well, we're actually going to talk about how the Giants can win the final after this here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. This is the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff here on 3SSR. So after talking about the Giants game on the weekend against the Swans, they're now off to a prelim final against either the Doggies or the Hawks. It's going to be a twilight one, actually. So the winner, if the Victorian team wins, they can head back to Victoria. But if you want to beat the Giants, you got to stop their forward line.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know about you, Geoff, but I've just got some stats up here, especially their big three: Cameron, Patton, and Lobb.
I want to talk about Rory Lobb a little bit more. Where did this kid come from? Because we had the spotlight on Stephen Johnson, Jeremy Cameron, and Jonathan Patton because Jeremy Cameron had a stellar season a couple of years ago. Jonathan Patton was like the number one pick, and Stephen Johnson's about like the legend of the Geelong Cats. But where did Rory Lobb come from? Just blew us out of the water, really.
It was a game against Port Adelaide early in the year up in Canberra. He kicked 4 goals, and since then he's just been
And I remember he played an absolute amazing game against the Eagles. They unfortunately lost that game to Nick Nat
that
goal.
one goal.
But he actually played. I remember watching that game and just go, this kid's amazing. This kid is showing everyone up.
Well, that's what I got here. Actually, from the last 4 games, this is what I mean. You got to watch out for their big 4. Against the Eagles, Rory Lobb kicked 4 goals too. The week after against Fremantle, Jonathan Patton kicked 6 goals 1, and then the week after that, Jonathan Patton kicked 5 goals 2 against North Melbourne. Going to the qualifying final, and Jeremy Cameron kicked 4 goals.
And I think their tools is just the tip of the iceberg when you look at Toby Green. And I remember watching Toby Green. I think I was talking to you earlier in the week, and I said to you, I was watching
we said
Toby
the same
Green.
thing. Yeah,
Watching Toby Green, I said, well, that kid is an All-Australian. And he was. He got an Australian.
He played like All-Australian against the Giants.
He played like a true All-Australian player. And he can kick goals as well. He can run.
Then you throw in Devon Smith and Stevie Johnson as well in that forward line. You got Reece Palmer waiting in the reserves, who actually won the premiership. The GWS reserve team defeated Sydney in the grand final.
Oh, yeah. What is it called over there? The NSF.
Yeah,
something like that.
They're reserve team, so they've got a premiership already. The Giants, they can make it too.
They got one in the reserves, but hopefully they get one in the premiership also. But they do have an amazing list, which is one of the reasons I think they should not go for Boomer Harvey.
Yeah, I think they got a young, and then midfield as well. Like you look at the Giants team, and there is a reason why I don't want GWS to win a premiership. Because I guarantee you there was a few years ago where everyone wouldn't mind the Hawks winning the premiership around 2012 when they started becoming good. Because, they're that young team coming up. People probably got sick of seeing Geelong and Collingwood. Because they played most of the grand finals towards the end of the 2000s.
Yeah.
And the start of 2010s. So, a lot of people probably wanted to see the Hawks play. I've got the Giants locked in for a grand final next year. And I've got them losing that grand final in my predictions. So, I'm not... Yes, everyone would be so excited to see the Giants in the grand final this year, but I don't know, in 3 years' time when they've won 3 in a row, or something like that, people probably won't be as excited.
Well, the thing is, they've got to just keep that team intact. If they are going to win a premiership in the future, they've got to keep that team intact, I think. Because look at the Suns. The Suns are just losing players left, right, and centre. And I mean, the Giants have a terrific team. And just about that history you were talking about earlier, about if they win it this year, it's going to make history. Well, I hope they do win it this year. But, if they want to win more premierships in the future, they've got to start signing some good deals for the rest of the players.
The only player that they could lose that's really important is Adam Thomason, who's one of the key backs.
Yes.
I think he'll sign. I think, he's signing at regular games. I know he wasn't getting regular games the last few years. I'm pretty sure he'll probably sign. You don't want to give up this history that they're building towards. If Tom Scully took a massive pay cut just to continue playing for this club, because he wants to be a part of this, they're building for something.
Yeah, but are they going to take that pay cut?
Tom Scully did.
He took a pay cut? But who else is going to take a pay cut over there? Is everyone else going to take a pay cut?
Well, I've signed most of the good players for the next few years, so they're doing okay. And like I said, I think we said this a few weeks ago, for the Giants, it's not a matter of if they can win the premiership, it's a matter of when they'll win the premiership.
Yeah. And I mean, let's just talk about the Giants a little bit more. So, are they the success story for the AFL? Because the whole reason for the Giants being put in in Sydney was to grow the game over there. So do you think it's a success with 60,222 people coming to the game?
I think that was a massive success. Even Andrew Dimitri, because he was the chairman at the time, but Gil McLaughlin, they pulled it together, having a glass of wine and just laughing.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we were saying that, I remember a couple of years ago when the Giants were doing too good and when everyone thought they were going to do amazing. when they weren't doing too good, and the Gold Coast Suns just made us in the final, everyone's saying that GWS project flopped because no one was coming to
And
the
when they
games.
had like I think it was the end of 2012, they played North Melbourne, and they only had 1,000 people show up.
Yeah, no one came to their games, and then Israel Folau, I think a year prior to that, decided AFL wasn't for
Yeah.
him, and everyone just went, look, the entire idea of the GWS Giants didn't go well.
Here's a question for you. I was talking about this yesterday, and before we talk about Steve Johnson's suspension. If the Giants do make the grand final, who will deliver the Premiership Cup? Because usually it's a club legend.
Kevin Sheedy.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking Kevin Sheedy.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else.
I was maybe thinking Luke Power, considering he was their first ever captain.
I think he's one of the coach. I think he's an assistant over there. So I think it'd be weird if the assistant coach just
True.
leaves.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Kevin Sheedy. Even like the name of the best and fairest.
Yeah, because Kevin Sheedy, that's his thing. You know what I mean? Like I think they named the best and fairest medal after him.
Yeah.
The Kevin Sheedy medal. Yeah.
Well, that's how Kevin Sheedy.
And he still loves that. He's with the Bombers at the moment, but he still loves that club.
Oh, he has. Yeah, definitely has a soft spot for them. Well, he's the one they created. He made them so big.
Yeah, and even when he was a coach, he was still promoting him. He was talking about the stadiums and stuff.
The reason why GWS is now years ahead of Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Years ahead of what Fremantle was when they started, the three clubs who haven't won a premiership. It took all these clubs, took Fremantle almost 20 years to make a grand final. The Giants were doing it in 5.
Because the brilliant thing is they've actually made an amazing transition in the coaching staff. Like Greg Williams went to Richmond, but I mean Leon Cameron, it was a terrific choice. He was an assistant coach for Alison Clarkson a couple of years ago. But I mean, I think Leon Cameron was just an amazing choice to have as coach.
Oh, the genius choice
for the Giants, because he's such a good leader, and that pressure we saw in that qualifying final in Sydney, that pressure was pure coaching. You can't. I mean, a team can't naturally have that pressure. It's got to be built by a coaching staff, and it was built brilliantly from him.
Well, I got to agree. 2 things I loved. Well, first I'll say that Stevie Johnson, was it a fair suspension?
Yeah, I mean,
I think a week, because you don't want to. I know, maybe it was round 2 or 3. They might have gave him the 2 weeks or the 3 down to 2.
Yeah.
But you don't want to kill Stevie Johnson in the final.
No.
I think they just did keep the festivities, keep Stevie Johnson maybe playing in the grand final, and he could turn it on, and he would turn it on.
Well, I mean, I don't think he really objected against the ban, because if he had objected, he would have cost himself a grand final or a potential grand final.
I don't think it would hurt him in the fact of making the grand final. Depends who they play, the Doggies or the Hawks. I don't think it would affect him at all.
Yeah.
I think, especially if they play the Hawks, who are now starting to show their age in terms of club, getting a bit slower, a bit more sloppier. The Giants can play their fast brand of footy, can easily run over them. The Doggies will probably be a brilliant game because they both play that fast style. But I love what the 2 co-captains. I know you're not a fan of co-captains, neither am I.
No.
But the 2 things they did that really made me like, wow, this is they're determined. Before they ran out, they go to the players, and it was a simple message. I think this is going to be their finals motto. Why not us?
True. Why can't it be the Giants?
Yeah.
I mean, because the youngest team to ever win the grand final was like the Bombers in '93, but I mean they did it, and they built legends out of that. Like they had like Fletcher and Herman
Sheedy,
Thompson.
yeah.
Sheedy was the man of the AFL back then. But I mean, why can't the Giants win it? And they can. They just got to train right and study their team. I mean, they can't. They are still a young team in some sense when you compare them
They're
to
extremely young team, yeah.
when you compare them against the Hawks and the Dogs. But I mean, they just got to level their heads. They can't get ahead of themselves. As soon as they get ahead of themselves, they've lost the game, in my opinion. They just got to level their heads. They got to study the team they're playing against. They've got to watch those games. If I was Leon Cameron, I would go to Melbourne and watch.
I think he's in Melbourne. He would definitely be in Melbourne.
Yeah, he would have to go to that game live to see the structure of both teams, because I think the Bulldogs are really good at zoning. But I mean, the Hawks just have this great midfield pressure. So you just got to study that team and know your opponent, and they can win that game. They just can't get ahead of themselves.
And the last thing I liked as well before we go, we'll probably talk about the Hawks next actually, but last thing I liked was when they went up to the coin toss, both Callum Ward and Phil Davis went up.
Yeah.
Even though I think it was Phil Davis captaining on the day. So, which means...
Yeah, see, that's like another reason why I don't like it. Like, you're going to captain this day, I'm going to captain that.
Which means Callum Ward would captain the prelim, which means Phil Davis would captain the grand final parade. So, Callum Ward will be the captain of the grand final.
See, this is why I don't like it. This is why I just have one captain and he can be the responsible one.
But I like the fact that they both went up together.
Yeah, it's a great sign, because I haven't seen that in a while. So it was a big day history.
It was. After this here on the AFL Hour, we'll go through the Hawks, and then after that we'll probably go through the Swans here on the AFL Hour. This is the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff here on 3SSR. So, Geoff, the Hawks.
Yeah.
They are starting to show their age, but yet they lost to Geelong by only 2 points.
Well, it's still a quality team.
A really good quality team.
Well, Liam, I'm seeing the end for Jordan Lewis out of all people.
Yeah. Well, the end is nigh for Hawthorn. The end will be nigh soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be ending soon. Like, because they've won 3 grand finals in a row, it's taking a little bit of time for us to see that they're going to be all retiring a little bit.
Well, you've done ever since they defeated Fremantle. They defeated Fremantle in 2013. They started to drop a bit in 2014. They dropped a bit more in 2013, and they've dropped a bit more after that now this year.
Yeah. I mean, they lost a qualifying final last year to West Coast.
Yeah.
And we all just sat back and we said, well, that's the end of the era. But then they ended up winning the grand final. So, I mean, Hawthorn's just a really odd team when they can lift if they want to lift. You know what I mean?
But the issue is teams. When was the last team to win a premiership without a key forward?
Without a key forward, I can't name one. Every team I know has had a key forward.
Yeah, the Hawks don't have a tall key forward. You know, they have Cyril, they have Gunston, they have Bruce.
But I mean, Gunston can play. You know, he's
a grand final specialist.
He is a grand final specialist. He's a terrific player, and I mean, I like to say he is the key forward of Hawthorn. But I mean,
he's 191, so he's Matthew Pavlage's height, but he's not Pavlage's built. He's a very skinny guy where Pavlage is very big.
That means he can jump.
He can jump and he can kick. He's a very accurate kick as well.
Yeah.
And he's one of those players who showed on the big stage. Same with Cyril Rioli. I think the Hawks a bigger chance as anyone.
Well, it is a big accomplishment if you think about it. They've made the last 4 grand finals. But I mean, do you think that were they the last team that made 5 grand finals in a row in the 80s? Because they made like 8, I think.
They made 7 in the 80s, 7 in a row, yeah.
7 in a row. So the entire culture of that club is we're a grand final specialist team. But I mean, that team is beginning to just die out, in my opinion. Do you think it's time for Clarkson to start transitioning more younger players and start dropping these old guys?
Well, that's what they're doing now. Most of the team's younger players. Like, you got Sicily now, who's came back into the side, who missed last week, who's a good medium forward. Tim O'Brien, I don't know why they're playing. He might be injured, but I don't know why they're not playing Tim O'Brien. Yeah. I know he's not a superstar who can kick 5 goals, but he's that tall forward presence that they need. And now that Siegler's out, who did his ACL, they only have McAvoy in the ruck. And Ben McAvoy?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. He's a very good second ruckman.
Right, but then who's going to be the first ruckman? Because Hale's retired and Ruffhead's unfortunately got a condition and he can't come back from.
That's what I mean. That's why there's so many reasons why the Hawks can't win. Yes. But the Hawks will probably... I still have them in... I think they're going to make the grand final.
I can't see them making the grand final. They just look too... I mean, they played brilliantly against the Cats. But whenever I look at that team, I'm not seeing the team that I saw 2 years ago. I'm just seeing a very tired team.
I know later on in the show I've got a deep, sincere apology to Geelong. Yeah. But Geelong don't look like a premiership team. The best team at the moment was the team who smashed Sydney. The Giants look like the only genuine premiership team. But
we keep writing them off because they just look too young and too inexperienced. Like, we're always just going to think that the Giants are just going to be clobbered in the preliminary for some reason.
Well, the only flaw the Giants had was their inaccuracy at goal. Yes. And that does cost teams grand finals. Geelong looks a bit shaky in the back line at times, a bit shaky in the forward line at times. Dangerfield's God. Yes. Let's face it. I haven't given him the credit he deserves this year, but Dangerfield is an absolute superstar.
He's a big Brownlow contender.
Oh, he's got it. When we talk about the AFL MVP, well, I think you can see the stats there. He's got the Brownlow in the bag.
Yes. But, I mean, oh my God, look at those stats. We'll get to the stats in a minute.
Yeah, we'll go to the MVP after after this segment.
But do you think it's time let's go back to the Hawks. Do you think it's time for Clarkson to start A, delisting or B, dropping some of these players for the next season?
There is a rumour.
Because I just think that Jordan Lewis he's a good player, but I think he's gotten to that point in his career that he's just taking up someone's position.
There's a rumour. You can't recall what website it's from, but because the Hawks want to get Jager O'Meara, yep. Luke Hodge, who signed the deal a few weeks ago, might retire. There's a whisper that Luke Hodge might retire at the end of this season.
There's a lot of players that need to retire from that team because they just look old. I mean, like, Rioli can still play, we all know that. Puopolo probably had his best season in a while. because man, I don't know why, but he just stands out for me this season. And then you've got Gunston who plays well. Bruce has had a handful of great games. But then you just got these players like, I mean, Mitchell hasn't had that good, that consistent of a year as his to his previous year. Jordan Lewis, so for some reason, we haven't been saying his name a lot because maybe he hasn't really stood out that much. There are a lot of players in that team that shouldn't really be there at the moment because they just look so tired compared to these young teams who are just getting up and playing the games every day.
Well, when we later on in the show, when we talk about the Doggies versus the Hawks, the prelim, the semi-final, if the Doggies want to win, just run them off their feet. The Hawks, the issue with the Hawks, they're slow. Yes, you got Cyril, Bradley Hill, Burgoyne, it's these quick-paced players.
Yeah.
But as a team, especially maybe coming out the back, they seem very slow.
Yeah, and I mean, the Bulldogs beat the Eagles off of their running. Face it, because if you look back at that game, the Eagles weren't picking up the ground. The Dogs were just running left, right, and centre. They were zoning brilliantly. What they've done for the last 2 years is their zoning. But I think that if you're going to beat the Hawks and you are the Bulldogs, you've got a slow team. It's a big ground. Try to spread them out. Try to get them to run more, because that would eventually take them out to a younger team. But I mean, I think the era's over.
I think the era's over. But, the Hawks have won 13 premierships since 1961. So, a bit like Collingwood, they'll be gone, but they won't be gone for long.
No, they'll eventually rebuild again. That's based on whether or not Clarkson's going to be the coach in the next 3 years.
Oh, they can't sack him. How
long has he been there? He's been there since the early 2000s.
Since 05, I think.
05, so that's 11 years.
And he's a 4-time premiership coach, some of the greats,
And especially in an era when coaches don't really stick around for that long.
Think of some of the 4-time premiership coaches.
We got Sheedy and Lee Matthews.
Kim Sheedy. Mick Malthouse is a 3-time premiership coach.
Alan Jeans.
Yeah, Alan Jeans. Is it Josh Kennedy? No.
John Kennedy.
David Parkin.
All the greats.
Norm Smith. He's up there, especially when it comes to coaches, up there with the greats.
And he needs after he won that grand final last year, I'm like, they're going to put a statue when he's on outside the MCG.
Oh, he would.
Because they got Lee Matthews' statue and you got Norm Smith, and they both won 3 in a row.
Well, he'll be a very small statue, though, because Clarkson's not the tallest guy.
Yeah, but I do think they should build a statue in Clarkson honour. Terrific coach, terrific team. I think that's the end of the era. Like what the Bombers were in 2000, I think that their time is almost up as well.
I do agree. Well, after this, we'll probably go through the remaining teams in the final series, but first we'll go through the AFL MVP awards that was held earlier this week here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. That was amazed here on the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff, and that was Geoff touching the mic.
I was touching the mic?
Oh, you were touching something.
Okay. MVP time, alright.
Yes, the AFL MVP awards, which was won by Nathan Fyfe the last 2 years.
Was the last 2? I thought Joe Watson won before him.
No, the last 2 years was Fyfe, and then it was Ablett.
Oh, okay, yep.
Quite a close one, actually.
Yeah, well, Rory Sloane got 443, and Dangerfield got 1,369. So the players obviously vote for this, don't they?
Yeah, which they worked out was that Dangerfield got a vote from at least every player who's played.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
So a 926 vote win for Patrick Dangerfield.
I mean, does that automatically put him the winner of the Brownlow medal, like in some respect? Because, I mean, if the players are saying he is the best player of the league, then the umpires who are on the same ground should agree with him.
I think so.
Oh, it certainly improves his chances.
Oh, definitely. Oh, but then who else would beat him? You think Dustin Martin could be a chance, but Richmond's lost too many games.
Yeah, and he didn't really look like the standout for some reason.
No, and then you got Rory Sloane, who got suspended, so he can't win. I don't think anyone can beat Dangerfield for the Brownlow this year.
I mean, we said some stuff like Dylan Shields play good year, and
Callum Ward, Tom Skelly. Yeah.
They've all played good years, but you don't think they could get enough points. Like Zach Merritt, who played brilliantly for the Bombers, you don't think he could get enough votes to beat Dangerfield. So it's basically Dangerfield for the win, unless it's like a massive upset.
Well, even if he doesn't win, it won't feel right. It feels like Dangerfield should win.
Well, yeah, he kind of deserved it. How long has he been playing for? Playing for a while. 5 years?
Debuted in 09.
Pardon me?
Debuted in 09.
09, yeah. So he's played for like 7 years. Yeah. So I think it's about time he won one.
Yeah, then later on that night, best captain went to Taylor Walker for the Adelaide. Most courageous, Luke Parker, and the best first-year player, Callum Milnes, both from Sydney.
Oh, okay.
But let's talk about Geelong for a sec. Are they premiership favourites?
I think they are. I think if you could beat the... I'm sure it was a kick after the siren, but if you can hold your own and beat the current You beat the reigning premiers. I don't know why that doesn't make you a contender.
I think I do. I don't think Geelong's as good as a premiership team, but no premiership team this year is as good as a premiership team. That probably makes no sense, but like, yes, I don't think Geelong's good enough to win a premiership, but there's no dominant team to be good enough to win the premiership.
Well, I do think the Cats are a chance. I don't see why they can't win it. Who would they have to win? They would have to beat Sydney or Adelaide.
Yeah.
And they would have to beat that team in Victoria when they have to travel. You know what I mean?
Well, Sydney bet Geelong in Geelong earlier the year, so.
And I mean, Adelaide and Sydney both don't play as, in my opinion, they both don't play as good as Geelong at the MCG.
No, I would agree with that as well. Well, talking about Geelong, I'm going to have an emotional heart-to-heart apology with the Geelong
I'm going to
Football
take
Club.
a nap while you do this, so. I don't need to apologise. I didn't say anything wrong.
Well, I've been tough on Geelong this year, mostly because of the 4 players they picked up: Lockie Henderson, Zach Smith, Dangerfield, and Scott Selwood.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, I thought, they're doing what the Hawks and Sydney does. And I spoke last week when I was by myself, thanks for showing up,
Oh, no worries. Just getting new glasses.
that, there's been 3 teams pretty much for the entire decade. But if you look at their premiership team in 2011, there's only 8 players: Tom Lonergan, Harry Taylor, Andrew Mackey, Jimmy Bartell, Joel Selwood, what was the last one? And Mitch Duncan, who was a sub. Oh, and Tom Hawkins. The only players who played in the 2011 Grand Final that are still playing in Geelong now. Bartell and Mackey are probably in their final year. I think if you look at the players they picked up, apart from Dangerfield, who's now the best player in the AFL, he only played in 3 final series beforehand. Scott Selwood didn't even play in the grand final. He was a sub. Not a sub, he was a emergency. Lockie Henderson was in and out of form in Carlton. And Zach Smith didn't get a game at Gold Coast. So not like they picked up 4 superstars.
No.
They just picked up enough players to make him a better team.
And it's just the tip of the iceberg. Look at Guthrie, I think, was one of the key players for him in that match.
Yeah. So I do owe Geelong an apology. They're a completely different team than the team who played in the 2011 grand final.
Yeah. It's based on their coaching, because I think Chris Scott wasn't given a lot of credit for winning that 2011 grand final because he did walk into a premiership side.
Oh, I think he'll have more credit now than he would have in 2011.
Yeah, because he really built that team up again. But like I said earlier, Guthrie was the difference maker in my opinion, because once he was taken off Rioli as a defensive midfielder and then placed as a more attacking midfielder, that was the change in momentum.
I really like Guthrie, actually. I think Guthrie and Duncan, the future of Geelong. Though Menzel might not be at Geelong next year, but he's done his fair share.
Yeah. Well, I said a couple of years ago do you remember the year when they won the VFL Grand Final against Williamstown? I think it was.
I think it was 2013.
2013. Actually, if God is my witness to the truth story, in 2013, I said to my brother, I think it was, I said to him, they're gonna win the Grand Final in 3 years. I just knew it because they have this history of winning the VFL Grand Final with these young players, and then they ended up winning the Grand Final. Like it happened in the 90s with Paul Chapman and Cameron Ling, and then they ended up winning the Grand Final in 07. So I think it's going to happen again. I think they're going to win the Grand Final, if not this year, next year, because they do have that great team.
It looks like Geelong has the hardest run to the Grand Final, considering they're going to play first place Sydney or Adelaide. Both teams, could have been top 4. If you looked at it 2 weeks ago, Adelaide-Sydney Grand Final looked like a huge possibility because it was 1 and 2. So Geelong has a harder run to the grand final than you think if the Giants play Doggies or Hawks.
Yeah, well, I get what you're saying, but I do think that the fact that it's been playing in Melbourne at the MCG is a difference maker. The Cats do like playing at the MCG. Have you seen them play there?
Well,
they love the big crowds. They love the atmosphere at the MCG.
I agree to disagree here because they want, especially starting next year, they're kind of annoyed the fact that the Giants get to have a home final at Spotless, which is a 24,000 seat stadium. But they don't get to host a final in Geelong.
We tried that, but the AFL didn't like it. I thought it worked out brilliantly.
Well, next year the Geelong want it, and I think it's being played in Geelong, so Geelong should get. Maybe if they play a Victorian team, it should be in Victoria. It should be the MCG. But if they're playing a team like Sydney or Adelaide, it should be at Skilled.
I mean, I would love it to be played at Skilled Stadium. I think it would be amazing, but it's all about the AFL. I don't know why a lot of people didn't like it because they thought the stadium was too small, but I think it is under construction at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be 35,000 by next year.
Well, it's going to get there one day. As soon as it hits, I reckon they're going to do a little bit more work in the member stand, where the Geelong... So where the away team sits. The other area. Yeah. I think they're going to just build that up to match the opposite side, and then that will be fine. But I mean, just for now, it might not be a suitable stadium. If they can get the attendance up to 40,000 by just keeps renovating the stadium, I can definitely see being played there.
Well,
And it'll be good for the fans because
it would.
technically Geelong isn't a Melbourne team.
No,
It's
they're
a
a Geelong
Victorian,
team.
It's a Victorian team.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be good to see them play in their home city a little bit more than usual.
I think it'll be great, especially it'll be great for the AFL to see.
Yeah, and I mean it would grow over there. It would bring some money to the community, with people going to going to Geelong using their accommodations and stuff. So I just think I think it would value Geelong more than it would the AFL.
So the only issue I have with Geelong, and I said it last week on the show, Geelong, out of their 9 premierships, have won only one in an even year. They're a very odd year premiership team. They love playing grand finals in odd years. They seem to win them, but they don't seem to win ones in even years.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird, but I think they're a genuine chance. I would love to see them in the grand final, and I think if they really work hard, they will make that grand final.
The only issue I see for both the Giants and the Cats is the fact that they played round 23, had a week off, played the qualifying, had a week off, so they played one game in 3 weeks.
Oh, sorry, my jaw just cracked.
I heard that. The last time a team did something like that was Essendon in 1990. They played the final. They got the week off, and then Collingwood and West Coast drew.
I remember that.
They had to play the next week.
Was that 1990?
Yeah, and then Essendon, played one game in 3 weeks and then got smashed, and then made the grand final, got smashed again.
Well, you can't have that replay game anymore.
No,
I think you just got
but the
extra
fact
time.
that one game in 3 weeks might not be the best for both teams, but who knows?
No, well, I agree with you there because I think for some reason their bodies get a little bit more tired and restless, a little bit more.
Do relax. I think Geelong might be a bit better off considering they had a hard, tough game where the Giants pretty much especially in the last quarter, had a pretty easy run through.
Yes.
But I think Sydney and Geelong in the prelim final would be an amazing match, and I think that's a 50-50. A bit like the Hawthorn Geelong on the weekend.
Yeah.
A 50-50.
It would be 50-50, but I can't wait to see what happens. I'm just gonna think that I do see the Swans beating the Cats. I still see the Cats beating the Swans at the MCG because Sydney just don't look like a strong enough team at the MCG. I think the ground is too big for them.
Mm. Well, we're going to talk about the Swans actually after this here on the AFL Hour.
Yep.
This is the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff here on 3SSR, and Jeff's now standing up.
I always do. Anyway, go on, move on.
Stand-up comedy.
Yeah, well, I'm looking into that area. Well, I do some comedy. Anyway, go on.
So now we're going to talk about the Sydney Swans as we're going through all the teams in the finals at the moment. Swans, did they let a big one slip? Did they lose the premiership last week?
I don't know if they lost the premiership, but they did lose a big game. So they just did. No, they did. Well, because they lost against the Giants, and this would have prepared them to the preliminary final, and I think they could have made the grand final through there. But now they have to go through the hard way, don't they?
Yeah, they have to play Adelaide at the SCG, but like I said, if when we're talking about Geelong,
Are they playing at ANZ or the SCG?
SCG.
Okay, yep.
That the fact that Adelaide and Sydney could have been a grand final matchup only a few weeks ago, you would have thought that.
Yeah, well, it's just all about the percentage at the moment. I do think that Sydney did lose that big game. They play against the Crows, I believe.
Yep. We'll go through the game preview towards the end of the show, but Sydney's lost their last 4 finals.
Yeah.
Coming back from the 2014 grand final, they went out straight sets last year, and so that's a big final loss.
Are they not a finals team? What's up with them? What do you think is wrong with them?
I don't know. Well, considering Sydney have pretty much made the finals all but 1 year in the last decade.
Yeah.
They've made 4 grand finals out of that. Well, sorry, 3 grand finals out of that, and one premiership. I wouldn't say they are a finals team.
Well, what do they do to check? Do you think Franklin's the problem? Do you think they go to Franklin too often?
Oh, way too much. Well, you look at the last premiership, 2012. They didn't have Buddy. They had Sam Reid as their forward.
Yeah, and not even Kurt Tippett was there.
No, yeah, Kurt Tippett was still playing at Adelaide at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, they didn't even need those forward line players. I don't know why they decided to go with them. They lost a good ruckman in Mumford because they did that. But if they're going to beat the Crows, they just got to get their heads screwed on right. Maybe throw Franklin in the middle, give someone else that responsibility of, and by the middle I mean just get him to run through the half forward line to the half back line. But I mean just give someone else that responsibility to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. What about the 2 injuries? The Callum Milne, who is good off the half back line, and Kirk Tippett, who's a good ruckman forward. They especially against Adelaide, who are full strength at the moment, would be a big outs.
Yeah. And also they are carrying a very bruised side. The Giants were a very tough team to play against last week. But I do. You know what? Don't count the Crows out. They've got an amazing forward line in Josh Jenkins, Taylor Walker.
Yeah,
Uh,
we spoke about the Chris Forline a few times on this show, haven't we?
yeah, we have Eddie Betts stood up again. The question is, can he do it at the STG this time?
Well,
It's not that big of a flight to go from Adelaide to Sydney, really.
no, well, when we go through the game, I've got a few interesting stats about Adelaide versus Sydney. But
Yeah.
last year, when they played the Doggies in the finals, Eddie Betts had a good field day. He kicked, I think, 4 goals. The week after, didn't kick a goal against Hawthorn. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. He's not very good on the return when it comes to finals.
And so who wins this game will play the Cats
Yeah, and MCG.
at the MCG. But you know I think Adelaide, not so much Sydney, but Adelaide's just the other team that they can't get ahead of themselves.
Well, Adelaide's done it before.
Brilliantly in the elimination final. They can go to the preliminary, they just can't get ahead of themselves, and they got to study that team.
Well, that's the issue for Adelaide. You know, Sydney played a final side. Geelong played a final side. Doggies played a final side. Adelaide played a
Ninth place side.
ninth place side.
I know it's a little bit harsh on North Melbourne, but they really were a ninth place side. They were equal points with the Saints, I think.
Yeah, well, I looked at Saints were on 12 points when North Melbourne lost their first game.
Yes, that's right, yeah. But I mean, like, it's just terrible how everything turned out. So do you think that the Crows, in a sense, look like the better looking team because they'll place next to the ugly sister?
Well, that's what I mean. It's hard to, it's really hard to look at, isn't it?
It is, because we don't really think about it. Put that on top of they actually played at home. They're a good side. You know, I'm going to tip the Swans. I think the Swans at home are a good team. They'll play a good game. But I think overall, the Crows, they're going to put up a good fight. But whether they can win the entire game, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one as well. For the Swans, like you said, they need to get rid of the Buddy factor. Yes, Buddy's good, but name the last one-man team, apart from probably Wayne Carey's North Melbourne side in the 90s, has a one-man team won a premiership.
Well, even that wasn't a one-man team. Brent Harvey was a good player back then. Glenn Archer was one of their best. And then Martin, he was a brilliant defender. And also, I don't think Savio Rocca was playing for him.
No.
He was playing for Collingwood.
Yeah,
But they had McKenna, who could have won the Brownlow medal, but he couldn't because he of his suspension.
Oh yeah, the three-way tie, wasn't it?
Three-way tie.
Yeah.
But I mean, they had an amazing team. So everyone remembers Wayne Carey because Wayne Carey kicked the best goals of that era.
Oh, it was always known as no Carey, no North Melbourne.
Yeah,
sort of
he
thing.
was the king. But if you look back on it, you could have taken Carey out of that team, and they still would have been a brilliant team. And they had a brilliant coach in David Parkin. Sorry,
Not
Dennis
David-
Pagan.
Dennis-
Dennis Pagan. Sorry.
I think who's David Parkin was the Carlton coach.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant Dennis Pagan. But I mean, Northman was different in the 90s because they had a team. When you look at Geelong, they used to go, "Oh, we have Gary Ablett on the team. We're a chance now." You can't have that way. They had a proper team in the 90s compared to the Cats and the Saints even.
Oh, so I saw this before, and I can't remember where I saw it. This could be completely false, but there is a rumor that Brad Scott could quit North Melbourne and go coach Brisbane.
I don't see that would be a bad decision on Brad Scott's part. He's not that good of a coach
No.
to completely transform a club. Even when he went to North Melbourne, he had like a solid team. Brought in 4 new players, I think it was. I can't remember who it was, but brought in 4 amazing players, and that's how he started. But he's not that. He's a great coach. He's not that good of a coach to completely transform the Brisbane Lions.
I 100% agree with that as well. After this song, we're going to go talk about the Essendon players, and they're finally back here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. Shout here on the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff. And it is currently 12 degrees here in Melbourne. Getting ready for a big final at the MCG later on tonight between the Western Bulldogs and the Hawthorn Hawks.
It's gonna be a great game. Can't wait to watch it. And it's gonna be really interesting because it's gonna be one of those old things. Can the young kids beat the old dogs? Well, in their case, can the young kids beat the old Hawks?
Ha 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 ha.
I said because I said old dogs and then the Bulldogs, and then I got confused.
So what, could the Pops become dogs? Is that what you're trying to say?
Probably, yeah. Let's go with that. That's
That's before we get into Essendon. This is Hawthorn's one to the grand final, aren't they? They've got to play the 2 youngest teams in the final series.
Oh yeah, and I mean they're not easy games.
Oh,
They're not easy games.
None of them are easy games heading to the grand final. It's the closest final series when it comes to game quality.
When you're the Hawks and you've got this young team who love to run and not play contested footy, how do you beat them?
Oh, you play your style. You play your Hawthorn style, which is slow the game down. go by foot. Hawthorn, especially mostly this year compared to most years, they haven't gone by foot as much as they usually do.
Yeah.
They're usually they're a pinpoint team. They will kick it. They kick down the field. They'll go straight down the middle. That's when they usually go to a Roughhead or Roughhead might tap down to a Bruce or Gunston.
Yes.
They play the Hawthorn way, the way that won you 3 premierships.
Are we going to see one of those games when a Hawthorn player just stands up again? Are we going to see the game when it's Puopolo,
Definitely.
Rioli, or Gunston, or Bruce, or Mitchell, or, Burgoyne's just going to have that amazing game?
You're probably going to be never write the Hawks out.
Never.
There'll be a player. It could be a Bradley Hill kicking 3 goals in the last quarter.
Yeah.
It could be a Nick Davis type of situation from 05, Doggies could be in front by 30 points heading into the last quarter. And James Sicily, who kicked the winning goal in round 3 against the Doggies, could come back and do it again. Come in the moment, come with the champion.
I know, no, it's possible, but, I can't really choose it. Like, if you said to me 3 months ago who's going to win if this was a final series, I would have said Hawthorn. But now, Bulldogs just played so well against the Eagles in Perth, you're kind of just going, well, you know what, maybe we shouldn't take out the Doggies just yet.
Pretty much.
Maybe they are a chance.
So let's talk about the Bombers. They're finally back. The Bombers, the Doggy, the Saints, and the Power.
Yep.
Paddy Ryder was there at 12:04 a.m. down at Arbuton.
I'm not sure where they train.
Where the Port Adelaide train. Yeah, so he was there at 4:04. What's his name? Not Brent Stadden.
Who are you looking after? Who are you looking for?
The Melbourne player, the one who got
Jake Melksham.
Yeah, he has to take a fitness test before continuing his career.
Very.
Jake Carlisle, he's 2-match banned for enjoying some powder. He's now lifted.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They're like, oh, you're banned for a year. We can lift it. I think they should have kept it though.
Yeah, Angus Monfries is back.
Yeah, Big Monfries. Yep. Watson's going back to New York. If you haven't heard.
Why?
They spoke to him. He's going back to New York to reconsider his options.
Okay.
Also, I read that Heppel was pretty much a shoo-in to captain the Bombers next year.
Okay, yeah.
So we should get that transition, the young captains in.
Yeah, and I'm more interested. I can't wait to see what actually happens next year, because are they going to be a slow team? Are they going to be successful? Like, it's just no one really knows anything about next year.
Well, see, that's why I think the Saints are probably the Saints and the Doggies with Crammery and Carlisle are probably the best out of the two, because they've only got one player that left. Where Essendon has an entire team.
They can drop Carlisle or Crammery, but they can't drop, 12 players?
Yeah, pretty much.
They can't do that, but it's just going to be really interesting. I think it's going to come down to amazing fitness, because I think all of them are still looking pretty fit, and just a good preseason. They can't even just have a good preseason. They have to have an amazing preseason if they want to survive next year.
I don't see Essendon making 8, but the 8 looks like it's a very hard 8 to get into next year.
Yeah. But it kind of feels like the Bombers have become that GWS or Gold Coast in the fact that they've just got one of these young teams again because of the whole suspension. So are we going to see the Bombers become the Giants in a couple of years?
Well, the Giants started off with all these young players, and then they slowly got 1 or 2 older players. They're not getting 12.
But they had Luke Powell playing for him and McDonald playing for him at back then. So it's kind of like the same situation, except they've got more old players coming into this team.
Well, I think it's going to be good. I'm hoping for Watson's sake he doesn't play next year.
Why?
Watson and Herb were the 2 keys for that old era of Essendon with the drug saga. New era, basic club around Heppel and Worsfold.
Yes.
And you can't forget it ever happened, but just put it to the side.
So does this mean that Stanton should leave too, because Stanton was part of that era?
No, I don't think, because Watson was captain and he won the Brownlow during that time, and all that stuff happened. That if Watson walks away, Hurd now got sacked last year, who lives on Venus. God knows where Hurd is, and it's just that bridge. Closing, put Heppel captain, close the door, base the club around Dustin Heppel, and that's what I think clubs should start doing. Base the club around players.
Yeah. Well, I think that Heppel is a right man, because when everyone left, he was still in Melbourne. He was watching the games. I went to watch Gold Coast Essendon, and he was there. I saw him there. Oh,
he was dead. Even though he sued the club at one point, he was not leaving. There was no way Heppel was leaving. He was dedicated.
He never had anger towards the players or the fans or the club. He didn't really have anger towards the club. He had anger towards basically the management. He didn't really feel like he was being managed properly.
Well, yeah, the brand new Essendon next year, Essendon with their midfield with Heppel in the midfield, Darcy Parish. We got Fantasia in the fourth line. Yeah, Tipper Woody, who is like the greatest player to ever play.
And I mean Langford, who I think had a good couple games, especially he had a fantastic last game. Not Langford, sorry,
Langdon.
Langdon, that's it. Who had a great last game when he kicked over the thing 4 goals against the Blues. Some clubs have been showing interest in him, but if you can say at the moment, he'll be a key player for them. And I mean, I think that young team that we saw this year are just going to be amazing next year. But I also think they should start getting rid of those top up players. Get rid of Gwilt, get rid of Crowley.
Gwilt already got the listed.
Pardon me?
Gwilt already gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Crowley is definitely out if he's not out already.
Nah, yeah.
But I think it's something to get rid of those players. They're not needed there anymore, and just start bringing in some new guys. I mean, is Leuenberger really necessary there? Do you think he should stay?
Nah, keep him there because you don't have a ruckman.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be good. The only thing I think to stop Essendon making finals next year is you only have Joe Danaher. Oh, actually, talking about Joe Danaher, I don't know if you watched Open Mic the other day with Matthew Lloyd.
I did watch it.
It kind of made me a good point. Maybe the reason why Joe Danaher hasn't improved his kicking because he hasn't had a reason to. He hasn't missed the goal. He hasn't lost the final because of his kicking. You haven't had that kick up the backside for him to improve the kicking. You know,
well, whose fault's that though? Coaching stuff.
I think it's his. I think it's if you lose the final because you kicked 1 goal 3 and you kicked 2 points in the last quarter, that will give you the kick up the butt you need to improve your kicking, especially heading into the next season. So maybe Joe Danaher needs a big loss. Maybe needs a miss after the siren. He needs something to give him that.
Wouldn't that further damage his confidence?
He could do both. It's the risk you need to take. Lloyd was kind of saying that as well. He didn't when he was having the yips in his early career. He never had the chance. They could have lost a big final because of Lloyd's yips.
Yeah.
Where, maybe that's what Danaher needs. He needs to lose. Like the only final Danaher played in was 2014. He kicked 4 goals.
Yeah.
Maybe if he kicked 4 points and Essendon lost by a goal, that could have gave him that boost.
Well, the difference between Lloyd and Danaher is Lloyd had that Kevin Sheedy who was just tough on him. Kevin Sheedy said to him when everyone went in at half time, stay out here and practice your goal kicking.
That was the mean coaches because we live in 2016 and everyone gets offended by everything.
Yeah,
and,
I know. Yeah.
Let everything be nice and everyone gets a participation trophy and it's a terrible, terrible world we live in.
Go on.
It was not that bad of a world. But coaches won't be harsh on Danaher.
No, well, I was talking to my brother the other day, and then we were talking about I'm a big fan of tough coaches, and I remember a long time ago, Nathan Buckley gave Witt a strong spray, and then was it Witt?
Yeah. Or the Heath Grundy.
No, I think it was Witt.
Yeah, Witt. Yeah.
And they gave him a strong spray, and then after that, Nathan Buckley apologized to him. Like, don't apologize. You suck it up and be a man, and you play the game. But I mean, and then he said to me, well, I think nowadays players don't respond well to tough coaches.
That's true. I remember I was talking to my girlfriend, and I've always wanted to do coaching as junior level. And my girlfriend's football coach for her girls team is by far the worst coach I've ever seen.
Really?
He's terrible. And I was like, how about I coach you girls? And she's like, no, because I'm a very much I don't know if you probably heard it. It's a Terry Wallace spray. You can see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's done like he spews it up, and it's a really good spray. And I go, that's how I'll treat people. She goes, oh, how would you start a pre-season? Because I'm really unfit. You'll get there, you'll put on your runners, not footy boots, and you'll do a 2K time trial. And no matter if you walk it, run it, crawl it, hopscotch it, as long as you get it done, you put your time down, maybe a month later, do another 2K time trial, and you have to improve.
Yeah.
And then be tough. Like, I remember they lost by 100 points, I think. They kicked a point. I'm not even sure they even kicked a point. And after the game, one of their players was smiling and laughing. And that annoyed me. Because you don't lose by 100 points and then smile.
Yeah, true. Well, I mean, it's local, so maybe they take stuff a little bit differently than the AFL.
I'm a very... I do believe in playing footy to have fun.
Yeah.
I do believe that. But you need to win. I remember we were talking about... Because actually, the team she plays for, they're having their best and fairest tonight. I'm being a wag. It's going to be awesome. But the team they play for aren't a very successful club. Her little brother also plays for them. Hasn't won a game in 3 years.
Mm.
And I go, you should move him. Move him to a bit of a better club.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, oh, he's having fun there. I go, yeah, because he's never tasted winning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You don't know how much you hate losing until you taste winning.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm a big...
Well, it depends on the year, the age. I mean, like, you can't be tough to a bunch of Oz kickers.
Like
if you're in teenage years...
The under 10s.
If you're in the teenage years... I mean, I've had some friends who've had some tough coaches in their teenage years. But, I mean, when you're under the age of, like, 13, I don't think it's needed.
I don't think it's needed. Wouldn't be, like, spraying him, but I wouldn't be treating him with, little gloves as well.
I mean, teach them footy. You don't need to verbally abuse them or anything like that, but teach them footy.
I don't know. I just don't think you should teach kids that it's okay to lose.
I think it's important to teach kids that if you lose, be good about it, be strong about it, like take responsibility. But I mean, if you want to be competing at the highest level one day for whatever reason, then you got to learn that you want to win, not lose.
Well, actually, that's a good point.
But I mean, when you're a kid, I think it should mostly be about sportsmanship and being like own up to your loss a little bit. While when you get a little bit older, it's mostly about gameplay and fitness, in my opinion.
I do agree with that as well. But I remember my little brother. He plays for V Squad. It's a pretty pointless thing actually. But James Sicily from Hawthorn and Taylor Adams from Collingwood came down. They both played in premierships in junior years, and it made me thinking because I read an article. Stephen Hill, his only premiership was in under 14s. Pretty much most AFL players have played in either grand final or finals in younger footy.
Mm.
You don't see an AFL player who played for a team who's hasn't won a game in 3 years.
Yeah, no. Well, it needs to be. I mean, there's a certain extent on how serious you should take those games. I don't think junior footy you should take it too seriously. But I mean, if you're in a
there's
team
that fine line. I think there's a fine line. I mean,
if you're aged between like 16 and 30, that's the kind of level you would want to take your footy.
Well, I
seriously.
think in many things I'm tougher than I actually am. I just believe. I don't think especially under 10 shouldn't get a spray, and under 10 you don't keep score. But the point is, if you know who's losing every week, I don't think it's a good look.
Yeah.
And that's why the club they play for only has a under 10s, under 12s, and a seniors.
Yeah, I
They
understand.
don't have the in between. So I'm not that tough, but I just think coaches need to be a bit more stricter, especially on older players.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And that's what they need to do with Danaher. Drop Danaher. If he doesn't kick it,
Oh, I think they should have dropped Danaher a while ago.
I think they should do something like if you kick more points than goals, you're dropped.
Oh yeah, that should be a rule. You got to toughen up with Danaher.
He's one of those players you look at and you can see a 80 goal season out of him.
Yeah. He's an amazing mark. He just needs to have a good kick.
Yeah. Well, after this, we're going to talk about the both of the semi-finals here on the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff. That was probably the greatest song ever made.
Yeah, a lot of people. I've never met anyone that hated that song.
It's because it's such a perfect song, balance and everything. There's nothing wrong with that song whatsoever.
Not much.
So we'll go through. We've got the first final now. Tonight at the MCG, and at the moment it's currently 12 degrees. I don't think it'll get much hotter. It'll be a...
No, it will be a cold
It's been
game.
a pretty wet week, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the MCG might be...
But might do it so good. It might make the grass softer.
which I think will benefit the dog, especially their quick running.
Yeah.
And it might help the Hawks with the fact that they don't have a tall forward. But it's a tough one to choose. Like, I don't know. I remember last year Adelaide played Hawthorn, and it was the same thing. Everyone's like, who will win this game? Adelaide played so well against the Doggies. Hawthorn smashed them by 70 points.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening this time.
I'm just gonna go on a limb here, and I'm tipping the Bulldogs. It's
You're
a really
tipping the Bulldogs?
big tip, but I'm picking the Bulldogs.
Well, I said earlier this week that lightning doesn't strike twice. I was corrected yesterday night, actually. Well, actually, we'll start off on Sunday. I was heading back from my mum, and she lives in Ballarat, and I got pulled over for a random breath test.
Yep.
I went all the way to the end of the line, and I had a guy. He kind of pointed out that my P plate was a bit too high up.
Yeah.
So I put it down, all good. Drove off, and then last night in Melton, random breath test, drove all the way to the end of the line, did my thing, and I just said to the guy, didn't know who he was at the time. I'm just like, oh, hey, can you just check if my thing's okay? You want to be sure. Turns out it was the same guy that I saw in Ballarat.
Oh, really?
The exact same guy. Just a few towns over.
Oh, okay.
What's the chance that you get the same breath test dude in a week?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a small world. So I believe lightning can strike twice. And as you know, yesterday I went over to where the Doggies made the banner for the cheer squad. I spoke to a few of their supporters and I pretty much asked them this question. I gave them the stats. And you know me, I love my stats. I'm a big stats man.
Yeah.
But the Doggies haven't haven't defeated Hawthorn at the MCG since round 5, 2007. They haven't won 2 finals in a row since 1961. The last time they played Hawthorn in the final was the 2008 qualifying final and they lost. And they have a 0-4 record against the Hawks in the finals. But let's see what the Doggies, see if they agree with my stats.
Very confident because they haven't got Brian Lake. Hawthorn are not going to win.
Oh, look, it's just statistics, isn't it? You know, we've got to win one time, don't we?
I'm very confident. It's about to change. Can I just say we are 100% win ratio this year at the MCG. We've played 2 games there, won 2 games, so this is going to be the 3rd. Mark my words.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, you don't worry about that. Look at the West Coast. We hadn't won over there for 6 years and we just obliterated them, or whatever you call it, knocked them off anyway. So, yeah, no worries. Go Doggies.
Go Doggies!
Go Doggies!
Yeah, so that's the Doggy supporters, like usual. There is no one more passionate in the AFL than Bulldog supporters. I've got to,
There isn't a lot of them, but they're great.
no success in so long, but yet, the lady I spoke to, she actually sued the Bulldogs. She took the Doggies to court in the 1980s because they were going to merge with Fitzroy, and she didn't want that, so she took them to court. She's a lifelong member. Her name is Irene Chatfield. Lovely lady. Oh, I
So
spoke
who are the Dogs to merge with again?
Fitzroy.
Oh, okay.
I spoke to Irene Chatfield and could have spoke to her all day. But she would put her life on the fact that she believes the Doggies will win the premiership this year.
I don't know about winning the premierships, but I would like to see them make the preliminary at least.
I think they would. I think the Doggies have enough. They have more heart than any team at the moment in the top 8.
Yeah, and I mean, the support of the Magic now, aren't they? I mean, they come to there isn't a lot of them, but they gain their memberships and they go into the game, which is good to see, and they're actually filling those seats.
One of the questions I asked the Doggies supporters, because this is for a radio feature I'm doing, is since Beveridge came in charge of the Bulldogs in 2015, I just go, is there a different feel? Because it seems like there's a different feel around the Doggies that hasn't been there in our lifetime. We haven't felt this thing about the Doggies.
It's just weird because they're not building a team around one player, are they?
No. Like, I remember watching the Doggies in 08, 09, and 2010. They're always there, but they're never the team to make the grand final. You'll never expect the Doggies. It just would not look right if they made the grand final.
Because I remember let's look back at when Luke Beveridge first took the job. What happened? Ryan Griffiths.
Higgins.
Griffin left the club. Higgins left the club. The Bradley medalist left the club.
They lost Brian Lake the year before.
Yeah, I mean, they've lost premiership player and stuff. So, I mean, we all thought they were down and out. So I think Luke Beveridge really shocked us. And he's one of those other guys who was a former assistant coach for the Hawks.
Oh, yeah. You always want to get your assistant coach, 2012, I think most of the assistant coaches came from Collingwood.
Yeah.
So, you always want your assistant coach from the best team in the AFL. Like I said, I believe, like the Doggy supporters, there is a different feel. There's a feeling about the Western Bulldogs that I haven't seen in years.
Yeah, and it's odd, isn't it? It's just so... I've never seen a team like the Bulldogs. I haven't seen a team like the Bulldogs since the 93 Bombers team. It's just... They're all young. They're all enthusiastic about their game. They're all positive. When they lose a game, they take responsibility. They said, okay, we've done that wrong. We're going to fix that up. I have a lot of respect for the Bulldogs.
So do I, and that's what I mean. They've made 2 grand finals in the history, 54 which they won and 61 which they lost.
Yeah.
Since then, they played the Hawks in the 85 prelim, Geelong in the 92 prelim, Adelaide in 97, 98. And I hope, especially I hope you, Geoff, can listen to my radio feature. And I spoke to Irene about the 97 one, and the heart broke. I wish I was there to interview Bulldogs supporters after the 97 prelim final. They were heartbroken.
But I mean, we've seen that before, didn't they? They made like 3 prelims in a row.
Yeah.
With Rodney Eade, and they lost against the Cats, the Swans, and the...
The difference between the late 2000s and the 1997 one was the Doggies were the team to beat in that one, where they came against Geelong, who was first, St Kilda, who was first, and then St Kilda, who was third. But they came against these teams, where in 97 they didn't. But this is not the same Doggies team. This is the Doggies team that I won't say, because they're the Doggies, I won't say they'll win a premiership, but they'll make a grand final.
Yep.
I find it hard to not see the Doggies make a grand final in the next 3 years.
Well, I hope they do, but I think it's just gonna take some minor tweaks, some smart trading, and some just good nutrition, and they will make it.
Yeah, and then you go over to the Hawks. I've got the Hawks for this game. I just think, as much as I think it's going to be a 50-50, but the Hawks will pull through in the end. The Hawks are a brilliant team. We've spoken about them pretty much most of the show. They are an absolutely brilliant team. It's very unrare you see the Hawks lose 2 games in a row.
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? I don't think it's gonna be a tough match. I can't really call it. I still think it's gonna be the Bulldogs by like a point. Really, I mean a point.
I just think if the Doggies, no offense to the Doggies, but if they beat the Hawks, I think the Giants are going to smash them.
Really?
I just think if it's a tight game, they'll be tired, and the Giants might, especially if they get onto a roll in the in the prelim final,
Yeah.
should smash whoever they play.
Okay.
And we'll go to a song now, and after that we'll go through the Sydney Adelaide game here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR with Lanterns here on the AFL Hour. That always brings me back to the 2013 Grand Final, which isn't my favourite day.
No, because you're a Freo supporter.
Yeah. Well, let's go back now. Like I said early in the show, 2 weeks ago we would have pretty much picked this out as a major opportunity of the Grand Final. Adelaide versus Sydney. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game, this one.
Adelaide versus Sydney. I'm gonna have to agree with you, but I have to agree with you because I just can't wait to see the Eddie Betts show.
Oh, I can't
He's
wait,
so
yeah.
exciting.
I'll tell you what I want. I want Buddy Franklin to put it on one end and Eddie Betts to put it on the other.
I would love that. Oh god, if it was like 5 goals apiece, it would be old school stuff. He's such an exciting player because he can spec you, he can kick from whatever angle you put him in. He's such an exciting player to watch. I'm really gonna wonder if he can give us a show in Sydney rather than Adelaide.
Yeah. Well, let's go now. Let's talk about some stats and some facts here. Sydney's lost their last 4 finals. The 2014 Grand Final against the Hawks, 2015 qualifying final against the Dockers, 2015 semi-final against the North Melbourne, and 2016 qualifying final against GWS.
Okay.
So they've lost their last 2 finals in Sydney. They'll be against Adelaide. If they lose, they'll be the first minor premiers since North Melbourne in 1985
Yeah.
to go out in straight sets. Adelaide has an 11-6 record at the SCG, so it's quite a good record. And Adelaide's last won the premiership from 5th spot, so they can do stuff from 5th.
I see that, but I mean, I'm trying to figure out. So is this a Sydney problem? Like, should we be putting a spotlight on this? Like, do you think this is a genuine? Like, are we saying that Sydney struggle in final series?
I think they've lost something. They need that spark that they haven't had since making the 2014 Grand Final.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I can't really figure out why they're doing this bad.
And Sydney, he hasn't won a premiership from 1st spot. I think they finished 1st in 1933. So just because Sydney finishes 1st doesn't mean they're going to win a premiership.
No, and it doesn't really mean much anymore, seeing as the Dockers.
It means nothing. Finishing 1st, like, was it?
I mean, the last Hawthorn went from 3rd place, I think, last year.
Well, we'll go from 2000. Essendon was 1st and then won.
Yes.
Essendon was 1st in 2001, didn't win. Port Adelaide was 1st 2002, 2003, and then 2004 they won. Adelaide was 1st in 2005. West Coast won it from 1st in 2006. Geelong won it from 1st in 2007. Then they lost from 1st in 2008.
Yeah.
Then St Kilda finished 1st in 2009 and lost. Collingwood won it from 1st. And then they lost it from 1st in 2011.
Yeah.
Hawthorn lost it from 1st, then won it in 1st. So being 1st means nothing. You don't want to finish 1st.
No. Well,
it seems
I
like
think,
more
I
of a
think it
curse.
means more. It's getting there, isn't it? I think it means more now to just make top 4. Because, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of teams, funny enough, winning from 3rd position.
Well, no teams won from 4th. The last team that went from 4th position is Adelaide in 1987.
Yeah.
So not many teams have won from 4th. Going to that, so Adelaide and Sydney has played twice in finals. So unlike the Doggies and the Hawks, which is a 0-4 record, Sydney's won 1 and Adelaide's won 1. The issue is that Sydney won in 2012 in Adelaide.
Yes.
Sydney
was a
won.
shock,
Yeah,
yeah.
I said Sydney, right? Did I say Adelaide? Sydney won in 2012 against Adelaide, and Adelaide won in '98 against Sydney in Sydney. So they both won finals against each other, but away.
Yeah.
So both teams went on to win the premiership after they defeated each other.
It's
Just
odd,
nice
isn't
and
it?
stats.
It's really odd, but I mean, I might just tip the Crows just because of those statistics.
So
that
you think
said.
it'll be like 2014 where both teams went down in straight sets?
Yeah. I think I see Swans going out in straight sets. It just depends on, are they going to make it the Buddy show or are they going to make it the Sydney Swans show?
I think the loss of the Giants hurt him. You don't want to lose to your younger brother.
Yeah. It's a little bit embarrassing too with them.
And it was their first final, and you know, I think I tipped Sydney by like 30 points. I didn't think it'll be a smashing, but I tipped Sydney by a bit. But yeah, they just didn't show up at all. They really didn't. I always think the favourite should win. I've got Sydney in a close one as well. I think it's going to be a really tight semi-final week.
It's going to be amazingly tight, and I can't wait. So who's played? So tonight's going to be the Crows.
And tonight's the Doggies and the Hawks.
Yeah, sorry, Dogs and the Hawks, and then Saturday's going to be the Crows and the Swans, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're going to keep an eye on both those games as well.
We're going to go to a song, and then we're going to talk about who's going to win it from here. Both our predictions here on the AFL Hour. This is the AFL Hour with Liam and Geoff, and that was Kiss Rock and Roll All Night. So, Geoff, we'll wrap up the show. What is your predictions of the grand final? Who's going to be in the grand final?
Grand final, I'm just going to go completely off unorthodox. I'm going to go Giants are going to make it, and then I'm going to put the Cats in there as well. I think I'm going to go old school. Whoever won the qualifying final is going to make it to the grand final.
I think I've got the Hawks and Geelong, but my second tip will be Giants and Geelong.
And I mean, I tipped Sydney to win the grand final, but after they lost against the Giants, I can't tip them anymore.
I think I said to you a while ago, there always seems to be a story heading to a grand final. Like I said last year, you know, Hawthorn and West Coast had those close games and had the final in Perth, and it just seemed right. You know, the Buddy Franklin saga in 2014.
Yeah.
You know, in 2011, it was Geelong and Collingwood pretty much neck and neck all year.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Giants and Geelong had both neck and neck games this year. You know, grand final would seem like a nice way to blow off their season.
Yeah, I mean, it would, wouldn't it? And I mean, it's going to be an interesting way to build up, like promotion-wise, it's going to be interesting to build up. Just say Stevie Johnson's playing against his old side, can he beat his old side? Like, you know what I mean?
And the emotions, if, you know, Stevie Johnson's a 3-time premiership player at Geelong, and the Simon goes and he wins and sees, you know, Corey Enright could be his final year.
Yeah.
You know, upset. And how do you feel?
Yeah, no, and did he get delisted by the Cats?
Yeah, him, Kelly, and Stokes. Yeah.
I mean, so it would be an amazing story to tell, but you know, it's just going to be a complete flip of the coin on who's going to make the grand final this year because it's unpredictable in a way.
And I think we've both got Dangerfield for Brownlow.
Yeah, Dangerfield for Brownlow, hands down.
So you don't give Adelaide, Sydney, or the Doggies a chance?
I mean, they have a chance, but I was just think it's going to be a tight one heading into it.
Yeah, so do I. Well, this is it for the AFL Hour on 3SSR. We'll be back at SYN for the next 2 weeks to preview the prelim final, and we've got the big grand final show. But next time we'll be on here in 3 weeks' time will be the A-League Hour, where myself and Geoff will go through everything in the 2016-17 A-League season.